On April 18, 1947, Herbert Mullin was born in Salinas, California. His birth was also the anniversary of the 1906 San Francisco earthquake. Now, I'm telling you this because number one, it's an important day in history, and number two, you'll soon see why this is relevant to this case. Herbert grew up very sociable and was reported to have many friends in high school. He was actually even voted most likely to succeed. After graduation, however, things started to change for him. One of his best friends was killed in a car accident. This was an event some experts believe may have triggered the onset of schizophrenia. At the good old age of 19, Herbert tried weed and LSD for the first time, soon becoming a regular user. His drug use reportedly worsened the symptoms of his mental illness, so it shouldn't come as a surprise when, at the age of 21, his family committed him into a mental hospital. He actually went to several hospitals for treatment, but always checked himself out shortly after being admitted. Plus, he didn't really stick to his and group therapy sessions. Herbert's birthday was the anniversary of the devastating San Francisco earthquake in 1906. Remember I mentioned that? Well, his schizophrenia worsened, and he began to develop bizarre thoughts related to this deadly day. So in 1972, someone had predicted that on January 4th, 1973, the San Andreas Fault would once again unleash a devastating earthquake in Northern California. The voices in Herbert's head connected the earthquakes to his birthday, and the voices told him that human sacrifice would be the key to preventing the disaster. His first murder was committed on October 13th, 1972. Herbert was actually driving down the road when he spotted a 55-year-old homeless man named Larson hitchhiking. Herbert pulled over, beat the homeless to death using a baseball bat, and drove off. Herbert actually later claimed that the victim was Jonah from the Bible and said that Jonah had telepathically asked Herbert to kill him so that the others would be saved. His next victim was a 24-year-old college student named Mary. Mary had an interview and was actually running late, so she ended up deciding to hitchhike. And of course, the person that picked her up was Herbert. Herbert ended up stabbing her to death and dismembered her, then scattered her remains along the road. The third murder occurred on November 2nd, 1972. Herbert went to a Catholic church to confess his sins to 64-year-old priest Father Henry. Herbert believed that the priest actually wanted to volunteer to be his next sacrifice. Herbert then beat, kicked, and stabbed Father Henry in the heart. The priest bled to death right there at the confessional. Herbert ran off. By January of 1973, Herbert had stopped using drugs and started blaming the drugs on all his problems. He then purchased a few guns and was off to kill his high school friend who had sold him his weed, 25-year-old Jim. On January 25th, 1973, he went to Jim's home. However, the home was now owned by 29-year-old Kathy. Kathy happened to be a friend of Jim's and gave Herbert his address. Herbert drove to Jim's house and shot him and his 21-year-old wife, Joanne. Herbert then realized he couldn't leave a witness, so Herbert drove back to Kathy's house and murdered her and her two children, aged 9 and 4. His next 4 kills happened to be on February 10th, 1973. He was walking through a state park when he seen 4 teenage boys camping: 19-year-old David, 18-year-old Robert, 19-year-old Brian, and 15-year-old Mark. Herbert believed that he had communicated telepathically with them and they had given him permission to murder them, so he did. Herbert was caught on February 13th, 1973, minutes after committing his last murder. He drove past 72-year-old Fred in the middle of the day while he was weed-eating his lawn. Herbert made a U-turn and shot Fred and drove off. A neighbor seen what happened and wrote down Herbert's license plate and called the police. He was caught and arrested without resisting. He confessed to the crimes and claimed voices told him he had to kill people to prevent an earthquake. Oddly enough, a 5.8 magnitude earthquake struck Southern California just 8 days after his arrest, causing an estimated $1 million in damages. His trial began on August 19, 1973, where he was charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder and 8 counts of second-degree murder. He was sentenced to life in prison and was sent to the Mule Creek State Prison, where he has been denied parole 10 times since 1980. You gotta be a little bit crazy to think that earthquakes won't happen if you so happen to murder people. He belongs in that prison forever. Alright, you guys, well, thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed, and until next time, bye.